one of the big problems we have in Nigeria is that state security actors actually use torture as a crime-solving tool. So you see state security actors most times engage in torture, using it as a tool to, obtain confessional statements from persons in places of detention. We've also partnered with IRCT in the past to also train security actors on the Anti-Torture Act of 2017. Through that same partnership, we were able to develop together an alternative report that was submitted to the 72nd session of the Committee Against Torture in Geneva. My name is Honest Ofo. I work as a senior program officer for PRAWA. PRAWA is Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action. And we've been partnering with IRCT for quite a while to implement interventions around anti-torture activities in Nigeria. Like you may know, we have issues of systemic torture in Nigeria coming from the years of long military rule in Nigeria, even up till date. So with the support of IRCT, we've been implementing a couple of intervention that is geared towards building the capacity of state security actors, trying to make them understand the various instruments that criminalizes torture, and also ensuring that their capacities are built in such a way that they can carry out their activities without utilizing torture.
My name is Chioma Anuna. I work with PRAWA as a program officer, a senior program officer, and I'm also the team lead for the research and documentation unit of PRAWA. PRAWA has 3 program areas, and one of which is the research and documentation unit. So there are a number of issues that we raised. One, the use of torture as a crime-solving tool. Also other issues about improving the national preventive mechanism in Nigeria. There are also other issues about the overuse of criminalization and overuse of prolonged pretrial detention, and then the issue of condition of detention of persons found in custody.
I want to start by responding to the issue alluded to by the principal rapporteur as it relates to our obligation to the committee under the convention. Our attitude over the years is regrettable. We're in the process of reforming and restructuring the National Committee Against Torture to make it more independent and responsive. Going forward, we commit to be more proactive in our engagement and live up to our obligations to the committee under the convention.
Yes, members of the committee are absolutely right. Government of Nigeria recognizes the need for urgent, immediate, and radical reform of our criminal justice system. It is also correct that the process has been slow, but again, you have to recognize that ours is a country of 36 states. To achieve meaningful reforms, that will require negotiation. Let me quickly respond to the immediate question on the applicability of the anti-torture legislation. It is true that the government of Nigeria has enacted an anti-torture law. That law, Mr. Chairperson, applies across the 36 states of the Federation. Current efforts are underway to promote regulations that will further enhance the law and provide clarity with respect to implementation. That initiative is being led by the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation. The committee may wish to note that the rules of our courts on the issue of confessional statements are clear and unambiguous. A person can state, suspect who is undergoing trial can properly state in court, in open court, in the course of his defense, that the statement that was obtained from him and which the prosecutor seeks to tender was obtained through torture. That is allowed within the rules of our court. Once this allegation is made, the court is mandated, and I use the word mandated, to order what we call a trial within trial to validate that allegation. The outcome of the trial within trial will determine how that criminal trial proceeds. If the court finds that that statement was actually obtained by torture, that puts an end to that trial.
I see that that the committee, in addition to welcoming the enactment of the Anti-Torture Act, which criminalizes acts of torture in Nigeria, but the problem we have is the issue of implementation of these acts. Because since 2007 that the act was enacted, we cannot say for sure that these are the number of security agents that have been punished or prosecuted under the act and penalized under the act for using acts of torture.
Just to mention that in Nigeria, we have 19 agencies of government that has the mandate to actually detain. But it's only one agency of government, the Nigerian Correctional Service, that you can say at any point in time how many persons are in places of detention. So we have that problem, that problem has always been there. So coming from the committee now telling Nigerians that, hey, you guys need to find a way to ensure that there is a register that details, the particulars of persons who are in detention. So we have continuously, as an organization, advocated for unfettered access, because we understand that when we don't have the powers to make unexpected visits to those places of detention, it's possible that issues around torture will be concealed by the time we are visiting. Another issue that was clearly highlighted in the recommendation is the issue of strengthening the national preventive mechanism. Nigeria has a national committee. Unfortunately, since that national committee was constituted, they are yet to make even one single visitation. There is no record to show that made any visitation. The committee has really not been empowered to do its work very well. If you look at it from the outside, it would seem like it's getting worse. But when you interact very closely, you would realize that we are also trying to, a lot has been going on in terms of trying to improve the situation on ground, especially given some of the interventions, that we have implemented or carried out with the partnership of IRCT. For instance, when it comes to the police officers themselves and other persons who we have trained on the Anti-Torture Act of 2017, they understand the situation a lot better now. But the problem here in Nigeria is that we are battling a lot of issues that makes it difficult for even the state actors themselves to actually abide by some of these laws and regulations. You made mention of the issue of terrorism in Nigeria. It's a big problem. So we have a security situation in the country that kind of puts these police officers or the state security actors on the in a very tight corner. Now, they are trying to combat terrorism. They are trying to combat insurgency in the Northeast. They're trying to combat the issue of armed gangs, bandits. Yes, that's the word, trying to combat bandits. So these guys are, terrible. The issue is actually very serious. So when we have close interactions with these men who are actually in the front line, so they get to tell you that if you know what these guys are going through, if you know what they do to others, and then we that are actually trying to contain this, most times they don't have the tools they need to work. Okay, a lot of them will complain to you now if you're telling us not to use torture. In fact, most of the trainings that we had for them, there was a virtual training of 14 series that we ran in the month of June and July of this year. And then in one of those sessions, an officer asked us, if you are telling us not to utilize torture to be able to, treat these cases, how else do you want us to function? Because we don't have the tools to be able to do this work. So one of the things we've realized is the issue that they resort to torture as a tool because they lack the basic scientific instruments that they need to be able to investigate, that they need to be able to interrogate, that they need to deal with these issues. So some of them will tell you that our hands are tied. We understand these things. We know what the laws are, but then we really cannot do much because for us to be able to handle this issue, for us to be able to treat this case, for us to be able to investigate effectively and interrogate, the only tool we have is torture. So that's the problem. That's why as an organization, PRAWA is also thinking now about effectively how we can train these officers on other effective investigation tools that they can use and how they can be able to use it effectively. Because the issue is as long as they don't know any other way to do it, they will continue to resort to torture as the only way to be able to do the work. So there is need to show them an alternative that is effective and in fact more effective. And that's why we have continued to underscore the fact, and they are beginning to understand it, that even when they utilize torture to get these confessional statements, it cannot be admissible in court because the torture invalidates whatever they are obtaining from the persons that they are torturing. PRAWA has a history with SARS. There is a project we implement with the support of the Swiss and GIZ, and it's called Police Human Rights Training. We did a major, like a holistic police training for all police officers in Nigeria. But now when we now discover through our interactions and research that the issues of police brutality is more prevalent in certain units, we now decided to have a specialized program and intervention for the SARS. So the SARS is called Special Anti-Robbery Squad. Yes, so it was set up some years ago to deal with the issues of armed robbery and violent crime. Then as time goes on, they began to realize that most of the officers started overreaching themselves and using disproportionate force, to handle cases. And then it became worse when there was really no accountability. So once they found out that they actually could, get away with some of these issues, it became more like a culture. And then suddenly they stopped being accountable. And of course, one of the issues that maybe exacerbated the problem was because they don't go by normal conventional uniforms. So they normally wear muftis to be able to conceal their operations and to make it discreet. So because they don't wear uniforms and you really cannot tie a name to whoever is perpetrating any of those things, so they continue to do it because they know they could get away from it. And there's been a couple of panels that have been set up in the past to investigate issues of police brutality with SARS, but unfortunately, all of those recommendations were not fully implemented. And then everything came to a head last year when the people protested against SARS and asked for the disbandment of the unit. But presently, the unit has been disbanded, and then the officers have been posted to other police units to do the normal conventional police duties. This year also, we were able to also implement another human rights training for two other groups also that have come to replace SARS. One is called SWAT, the other one is called IRCT. So we were able to do capacity buildings for these officers in Lagos State and in the federal capital, that's Abuja, in the month of November. So we continue to see how we interact with them, because we understand that one of the major issues that they lack is capacity. And from our interactions, we realize that if we can continue to build their capacity, it will be easier for them to, to abide by their rules of engagement and to use less of torture.
And the fallout from that, yes, it is true that we had national protests across the country concerning what was said to be in many quarters the high-handedness of that special force of the Nigerian police. Government has responded through a number of means. That special force, special anti-robbery squad, as it's called, has been disbanded. That disbandment took immediate effect. A number of panels across the country has been set up to investigate this complaint. The issue of NSAS and how to respond to NSAS has been an agenda item of the meetings of Nigeria's National Economic Council now for the past 4 meetings. Indeed, at the last meeting, the focus of the last meeting was to agree with the Governors Forum on how to pay back, how to pay compensations that have been allotted to victims. Now, there have been a number of interventions which are aimed to ensure that the Nigerian armed forces are compliant with human rights practices and norms, even including understanding the full meaning of acts of torture and Nigeria's multiple commitments under the Anti-Torture Convention. The National Human Rights Commission, in particular, supported by various international agencies, conducts frequent trainings for the armed forces, particularly the rank and file of the armed forces, whose boots are in the areas of operation, on human rights norms and its implications on the rules of engagement. The committee may be aware that there is now human rights desk in all army formations nationwide. The purpose of these human rights desks are to give aggrieved citizens the opportunities, another opportunity or additional opportunity to complain against possible excesses by military personnel. The committee may also know that there is now a human rights desk in Nigerian Defense Headquarters. Again, the purpose of that desk is to coordinate, collaborate, and engage with various stakeholders on human rights. Mr. Chairman, so that we are very clear, nothing that we have said, nothing that the Nigerian delegation has said today should give the impression that we're a country that has everything under control and there are not serious concerns that we have to deal with. The government of Nigeria recognizes the seriousness of issues that it continues to face. Our approach has been severally stated by the head of delegation is first and foremost to prevent acts of torture. Prevention is the immediate tool that the Nigerian government constantly deploys. But we recognize that even within our greater efforts, acts of torture may still happen. Therefore, it is the policy of the government of Nigeria that where these acts of torture happen, there is an effective, immediate, transparent remedy to reverse that act.
Now, on the issue of rehabilitation for torture victims, which we have been clamoring for from the time of the Universal Periodic Review, the Anti-Torture Act only provides for the right to claim compensation for torture victims. It does not make provision for other forms of reparation like rehabilitation. On the other hand, the National Human Rights Commission, whose act gave the mandate to assist victims in getting the necessary care and appropriate redress and remedies, has only so far been able to provide legal redress due to inadequate funding and resources. The government does not provide rehabilitation centers. It does not have rehabilitation centers, does not also have rehabilitative measures that would benefit victims of torture according to their specific needs. Torture rehabilitation services are only provided by specialized non-governmental organizations like PRAWA, whose thematic area cover provision of rehabilitation for victims of torture. However, there is only a huge limit to what these specialized non-governmental organizations can do. Considering the fact that Nigeria is a federation made up of 36 states, including the Federal Capital Territory, and within these 36 states are also about 717 local government areas, you can agree with me that there is a limit to what these CSOs can cover. We are hopeful that the concluding observations and the recommendation from the Universal Periodic Review will have the effect of getting the government to collaborate with the CSOs that provide these services in establishing a national rehabilitation program that will cover the whole of the federation and provide victims of torture with the necessary support that they need, and also have the effect of providing the much needed funding for the National Human Rights Commission to be able to provide or to fulfill its mandate.
My advice would be that, sometimes it looks very difficult until you start. Okay, when we wanted to start this process, we thought it was going to be very difficult. How are we going to, get other civil society organizations in a very large country like Nigeria to come together to put together a shadow report and all? But with the support of IRCT, we discovered it wasn't as difficult as it seemed. So my advice to other member centers that would want to join is to seek how they can also partner with other local CSOs while they are trying to do this. So what we tried to do was to leverage on the expertise of those other organizations, and we're able to put together a robust report that was sent to the committee. Really, we are hoping it will make a whole lot of difference because it's different when NGOs and civil society organizations in Nigeria complain about some of these things and government probably just waves it aside. Our work now is also to provide support and to advocate that government should implement this committee recommendation. So what it means that we have extra boost to now engage the government to say, hey, this is not actually also coming from us, this is coming from the Committee Against Torture, and something needs to be done to ensure that these recommendations are fully implemented.